So understand that the things that I'm teaching you here, the different strategies that I'm talking about, those are not gospel. They're not written in stone. They're not the only way to do things. It's just I found that they work well for the vast majority of the players out there. So there's other ways to do other different things, but what I'm trying to teach you here today basically is a really good way for most players. A lot of people ask me about the grip. What's the best grip to use? I just use a continental grip. I never change my grip. I never change how soft or hard I grip the paddle. It's the same all the time. I don't generally recommend a grip for different players. There's some players out there, top really good, top 5-0 players, that they're able to use really strange grips to win points. So whatever grip works for you, that's the best grip to use. You don't have to copy anybody else. Whatever's working for you is good. The reason that I talk about why do you need to serve deep? Why do you need to get a deep serve return? Why do you need to get it deep? The reason is the farther that your opponents are from the non-volley zone when they hit the ball, the more difficult it is for them to hit the ball that they want to hit. So if I'm doing a serve return and that serve return is from really deep, it's more difficult for me to hit the ball where I want to, as opposed to if you serve me the ball and the ball's here, it's much easier for me to hit the ball anywhere I want. Even more important is when you hit the serve return. The reason that that serve return has to be deep is the third shot done correctly is a relatively difficult shot for a lot of people. To hit it perfectly, nice and soft into the non-volley zone. If you're making your opponents hit that third shot all the way from back here, it's much more difficult for them to hit the perfect shot as it is for them to be able to hit that third shot from here. So that's the reason that I talk a lot about you've got to serve deep, and even more important, you've got to get your serve return deep. Whenever I'm playing with my partner and we've got a right-handed and a left-handed player on the court, it's generally deemed by a lot of people to be an advantage to us if the right-handed player, our opponents, the right-handed player is on this side and the left-handed player is on this side. That way both of their backhands are to the middle. It's usually easier to hit a ball down the middle than it is to hit down the sidelines. So usually if I'm playing with my partner and we're playing against a right-hander and a left-hander, I'll remind my partner when both of their backhands are to the middle. You want to learn to take strategic timeouts. Intermediate players, when they're playing tournaments, what have you, very rarely do you see them take a timeout. Top pro players, all the time. If they lose 3 or 4 points in a row, almost automatically they're going to take a timeout. They're doing that because they want to stop the momentum of their opponents. They don't want them to keep that momentum going where their opponents are winning point after point after point. Plus the fact of when you take a timeout, you can talk to your partner. Hey, let's try this. Maybe we're going to hit to Joe instead of Phil. Maybe we're picking on the wrong person. Maybe we need to be a little bit more conservative, stay in the soft game a little bit longer. We're coming out too early, and they're killing us. While I'm talking about your partner, you need to be supportive of your partner. This is one thing that's difficult for a lot of people. You want to try and keep the eye rolls, the discouraging comments to your partner, try and keep them to a minimum. Your partner knows when they messed up. You don't have to remind them. So be a very supportive partner. Hopefully they'll be supportive of you if your game is kind of going flat at a certain point. So it goes both ways. So let's talk a little bit now about the mechanics of dinking. When you're dinking, one of the biggest things that you want to do is you want to keep low. Keep low, shuffle your feet. So you want to move quick, stop, hit the ball. Move quick, stop, hit the ball. Unlike tennis, in tennis, a lot of the players will stand like this when they're hitting ground strokes. In pickleball is up here at the net. So if you're not standing square to where the ball is, you always want to be facing the ball with your shoulders square to the ball. Otherwise, if you're standing like this and you hit a ball, it's too easy for your opponents to pass behind you. And I see a lot of tennis and racquetball players trying to hit the ball like this. So face the ball's over here, you're ready for it. The ball's over here, you're facing ready for it. You don't want to cross step. Sometimes you'll have to cross step if a ball's really, really wide. You're too far from it. when they hit it. The problem is that when you cross step and to hit the ball, now behind you is open for your opponents. So now you've got to come all the way back here to be ready. So it's much better. You've got a much smaller area in pickleball that you have to cover in doubles. So it's much better. Shuffle, shuffle, hit. Shuffle, shuffle, hit. When you hit, you want to try and do a nice, smooth stroke, unhurried. When you poke at the ball, when you're hurried and you have to poke at the ball, you have much less control. Watch the top national players. When they play, they're very, very seldom hurried. They're always ready to hit the ball, nice, smooth stroke. When you're hitting the ball in pickleball, the less wrist that you use, generally the better. The more wrist that you try and put into the equation, the less control that you're going to have. So try and keep a stiff wrist when you're hitting that ball. Much bigger margin for error when I'm dinking cross court as opposed to dinking straight ahead. So if you're not a great dinker and getting in a dinking battle, I would probably either dink down the middle or cross court. Dinking straight ahead is a much more difficult dink to do. When you're dinking, you don't want to just pop the ball over the net. You don't want to just be sitting here dinking and all you're doing is hitting nice little curved shots over the net. When you dink, instead of your paddle being open, you want your paddle to be more flat. You don't want to be hitting the ball like this when you're dinking. You want to be hitting the ball more like this. When you do that, the ball stays lower, and when the dink goes over to your opponent, they have much less opportunity to do what they want to do with it because the ball is lower. Generally, you also want to try and dink the ball, in most instances, at your opponent's feet. When you dink it at their feet, they have much less control in getting the ball back. So keeping the ball low, keeping the ball at your opponent's feet, those are things that are going to stress out your opponent and hopefully cause them to pop the ball up. Especially nowadays, you'll see a lot of the top players using backspin when they're hitting the ball. Backspin means I'm hitting on the bottom backside of the ball, going through it a little bit with my paddle open. That creates a backspin on the ball. Backspin basically helps the ball sail and keeps the ball low. Plus, when the ball bounces, the ball doesn't bounce up as high when you've got backspin on it. So go ahead and practice when you're dinking. Practice hitting backspin. See if that doesn't help you a little bit. When you're up here dinking, you want to try and be as close to the non-volley zone as possible under most instances. Again, if you pop the ball up, your opponents are going to be able to crush it. Yeah, you want to take a quick step back. But for most instances, you want to be right up here on the line. The reason for that is twofold. One is it's much more likely that you can take the ball out of the air and not let it bounce first, so you can take the ball as a volley. When you're able to take the ball as a volley up here at the non-volley zone, when you do that, you have much more options and much better shots that you can do by taking the ball out of the air as opposed to hitting the ball from down here. So you can hit your opponent's feet easier, you can hit angles easier, you can do misdirects easier. All of that if you're hitting the ball, taking it out of the air. If you're standing back here, it's almost impossible to do. Plus, if you're standing back here and your opponents are dinking, they can dink it all day long right at your feet and give you much less control. So once the dink game starts, try and be here at the non-volley zone. Try not to let them force you back off that non-volley zone. If they do force you back, hit that one dink, immediately get back up here. Otherwise, they're just going to keep forcing you back and back and back. Another reason why you want to take that ball as a volley out of the air, whether it be here up here dinking or as a lob or anything else, is time management. You want as much time on your side as possible and as little time for your opponents to hit the ball. So basically, anytime you take the ball out of the air, your opponents have less time to set up. You want to make getting to the net a priority. Generally, you only have to tell this to beginners and intermediates. Once you're at the 3-5 level or above, getting to the net, you understand that that is a major priority. So when you do that serve return, bust butt, get up here to the net, don't stay back there. Staying back there is a losing proposition. Again, Um, tennis players, when they first start playing pickleball, tennis players have a huge advantage because of hand-eye coordination. They're used to hitting the ball, but their strategies are really flawed because most tennis players at the lower level, they want to stay back because that's what they're used to. You need to play with no ego. If you're the weaker partner, doesn't matter if it's mixed doubles, men's doubles, women's doubles, it doesn't matter. You should have no issues in tournament play. I'm talking about tournament play, not open play. In tournament play, you should have no issues with your much better partner poaching shots. Let your ego aside, forget about your ego. I'm very, very lucky in that where we live here in the Villages, we have a lot of really high quality top 5-0 players come here to play. And I get lucky a lot of times where maybe there's only 3 of them and they need a 4th, and I get invited into the game. And a lot of times I get invited into that game because they know I'm a very smart player. If I'm playing with Rob Elliott or Brian Staub or Phil Bagley, we're probably playing against top 5-0 national players in that instance. So my job there is for me just to keep the ball low and in play. Not to try and do anything fancy, not to try and hit winners. Nothing other than keeping the ball low and in play and let my much better top 5-0 player hit the winner.